So firstly, thank you all for being here today. We are going to be diving into a topic that I know many of you are very interested about, particularly as you're starting to think about your people strategies for the year ahead, which is understanding capability, not just as roles or as titles, but through the lens of skills, potential, and real-world agility. But before we roll up our sleeves and get stuck into the good stuff, I would just like to take a moment to introduce myself and Laura and a little bit about what we do at With You With Me for some context. So my name is Cia Kouparitsas. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at With You With Me, and I'm joined here by the lovely Laura Berman, who's one of our consultants who's certified with SFIA, which is the globally recognised skills framework for the information age. Laura and I have been doing quite a few of these webinars lately to help people really understand the skills ecosystem, how skills frameworks work, and practically how you can start implementing this stuff into your organisation. So in terms of what you're going to see today, we will try to keep things to 30-ish minutes so that there is time for questions at the end. You're also welcome, of course, to pop anything in the chat. I'll be monitoring that as we go, and we can respond either during the discussion or at the end. We are going to cover off on 4 key themes or pillars, which you can see here on the screen. So firstly, we're going to look at what skills capability really means today and why you might want to consider a skills first approach. Next, we're going to explore how to discover untapped skills and potential in your workforce, and then we'll focus on how you may then use that information to close your workforce gaps, whether that's through hiring or professional development or internal mobility. And then finally, we will have a quick look at how you can scale this understanding across your workforce using some of the really actionable insights and analytics that come out of the back of these exercises. So I do know there's a few familiar names I see joining us on the call who've attended some previous events that we've done. So thank you for coming back. But those who are new today, a little bit of background on With You With Me. If you haven't heard of us, we are a global HR tech company, and we work with organisations to solve the workforce skills challenges end to end. So that's everything from building a skill framework to skills mapping employees' current capabilities as well as their potential to learn new skills, and then using these workforce insights to develop highly targeted professional development or hiring plans. Now, how it looks in practice is very different for every organisation, but the way that we typically approach it is to start with that skills framework, defining what are the skills that you need, and mapping job roles down to the specific capability and skill level that they require. We have a tech platform that allows us to do this at scale, and it does a lot of the legwork for our customers, which is great. Essentially helping them, assess the current skill level and overlaying that with information on an individual's potential to learn a skill. And then using that data, we start to map out learning opportunities for individuals to help them excel in their current roles, or identifying upskilling pathways to help someone move based on their natural strength or an internal mobility option, or even introducing that skills-based hiring that I spoke of before. Basically, it's an exercise for organisations to get to know every employee and understand how they can support team members in their current and future roles within the organisation. So in our last webinar, we walked through the specifics of how to get started with creating a skills framework. So if you're curious to learn about that, I will drop the link to the recording of that session in this chat. But today we're going to take that next step, which is how do you skills map your people to uncover the capabilities that they have, the potential that you may not be aware of, but then make all of that actionable. So no set and forget spreadsheets. How can you take skill insight and make it, make it have a meaningful difference to your people's development journey, your company's objectives, and ultimately bringing those two things together. So given that Laura is the expert in all things skill framework and SFIA, I would like to pass it over to you now, Laura.
Thanks, Cia, and hi everybody, and welcome back, anyone who joined us for our last webinar. So at the top of the webinar, I did attempt to put a poll question in the chat. I know there has been some responses through. I haven't had a chance to look at the results, but what I was asking was really just wanting to understand, so like, how does your organisation understand skills at the moment? So are you on the path to that? Are you just getting started? So if you haven't seen the poll, you wanted to add that in the chat, that'd be great. But it's great to have you here. And really, I guess this is a hot topic, which is why we're talking talking about it today. So I'm going to crack in and start moving into the presentation part of today. And then we will come back at the end, and really keen to answer any questions you might have as we go through. So according to Mercer, 41% of executives identify reskilling as the top risk for growth in 2025. So we know this, the workforce is evolving, it's being redefined. So skills are now the new currency of work, and organisations that fail to hone in on that or recognise and mobilise are at risk of being left behind. So the workforce challenge is often talked about digital transformation, but it's actually human transformation. So when we're powered by insight and intentional investment in people, then that cost of hidden talent is really significant. So if we're not seeing that, then we've got underutilized skills, a higher risk of turnover, missed opportunities for internal mobility, and leading organisations are already starting to take actions to understand that space. So as Cia touched on before, I really wanted to explore today sort of how to understand the skills landscape, but also ways that you can uncover any potential across the organisation that you may not have seen. And then lastly, how data and insights can really drive that meaningful action, being able to see those trends. Now, at WithYouWithMe, we do work with lots of organisations, and we take a particular approach of 3 steps. So we start with clarity. So that's really around understanding the roles and their alignment to an organisation's strategic goals, but also aligning it to a skills framework and building that out. We then go through and understand capability. So that's really where we're starting to uncover individuals' natural strengths. We validate opportunities for growth and for learning as well. And once we have the clear alignment, we understand capability, we can start to look at closing any skills gaps. So we're creating learning opportunities, but also really targeting to support individuals and also organisation need. So in our last webinar, we really did hone in on that clarity piece. So about building out the skills framework. And today I'm going to really focus in a bit more on the capability side. So around identifying and assessing and validating employees' current capabilities and how you can see that, but then also moving through into that closure piece. So that organisational insight view, what patterns can we see? How can we see that? Really just to help the organisation to continue to grow with the individuals as well. So in terms of the framework, just to touch on that clarity piece. So in a nutshell, this is where we're really reimagining the traditional workforce planning. So we're shifting away from a static job description and moving towards something that focuses on skills, tasks, and those outcomes that are needed. So this approach is really good for the organisation for preparing for the future of work. So, and it's particular in those organisations where there's greater flexibility around roles, you're sort of adapting to what you need in terms of your talent strategies, but also there's that ongoing upskilling. So talking about digital transformation earlier. So this is true and for organisations in the current climate at the moment. So when we are in that clarity piece, our approach is to build the skills framework is using SFIA, which is Skills for the Information Age. So it's a global framework. It's a really flexible resource, and the best thing is that because it's being honed across industry, it means that you can work within one department, but also you can quickly leverage to understand across an organisation. So because it goes down to that skill level, and it's also very diverse, 121 or so skills and counting, they keep updating it. It means it's a really good resource, which will allow you to build out your framework, and then you can start to really hone in on any your key objectives, which could be around the workforce planning side. It could be also recruitment. So really being able to understand what are the core skills or tasks that you need when you're building out your job descriptions and selection criteria, which can really help for accurate hiring and also reduce the time to hire as well. Development planning, as we've mentioned and we'll keep talking about today, and really being able to focus on that internal mobility side. So where are these skills in this department being used in other areas, and how can I perhaps move my team with the skills. And then also just that organisational need. So because it gives you that broad range across the organisation, you can get some information around skills development, talent management, and apply it to your organisational goals. So SFIA is our choice there. So in a nutshell, when we're building this out, we're ingesting current position descriptions, duty statements, or could be some skills frameworks that you've been using, and we're able to simplify those role architectures. So by summarising the roles down to those skills required, it means that we can hone in on those that cause tasks and objectives. And when you remove that noise, then you can get a really clear view on where you need to focus on upskilling and reskilling, which can then start to close those gaps and then be able to allow the organisation and individuals to grow. So skills don't exist in isolation. So yes, the skills framework, and I've just talked about it for a while there, but the other side of it is about understanding strengths, aspirations, learning styles and preferences of your team and across the organisation, because when you start to layer that information, you get really rich insights and it can really support sort of meaningful growth for both the person and the organisation. So to unlock the full capability of your workforce, it's not just that set of skills, but also skill potential. So this means understanding not only what people can do today, but also what they have the aptitude and the affinity to do tomorrow and into the future. So by combining the skill visibility and skill potential, you can really get some actionable intelligence to better align people to particular roles, enable internal mobility, support that targeted development, but also sort of build out those workforce decisions. So really around uncovering that hidden potential. Now, how we, in terms of our space in this capability space and how we do that, we have skill assessments. Individuals can look at their current skills for their role and understand where they're at. But also we've got these 4 key personal assessments that really build a deeper, more holistic view of an individual. So we've got psychometric assessments, which identify natural strengths and leadership styles. We've got culture fit, so looking at personality traits and how that contributes to the team and where you fit there. Aptitude, which is really honing in on how you think, problem solving and critical thinking, but then also learning styles. So really thinking about how you best learn, and then that really helps to tailor how you might take a development approach. So all of these personal insights enrich our understanding of team members. And once we've got those, this is where we can start to uncover that hidden potential. They can guide development, as I mentioned, but also in terms of the internal mobility piece, it's really about where, even if someone doesn't have a lot of experience or they've got minimal experience, they actually might be identified for a future role. And then you can build out a development plan from there. So it's really empowering to understand where individuals truly fit and where they can flourish within an organisation. I guess you could see it as sort of activating that potential. So I've got a little example that I put up here that kind of summarises what this view might look like. So we've got Jason here, who's a software engineer. On the right-hand side, we can see a skill assessment. So the skills that have been defined at particular levels for the role that he's currently in around software engineering, but then an aspirational view of what a senior software engineer might look like. So we can see here that there's a shift in requirements, so some learning opportunities for the skills he currently is working on, but also some additional skills. And then on the left-hand side is a bit of a summary around some of that like personality information or that background information about Jason that can help support how we tackle and support him to move into that next role. Now, next, I wanted to jump into the platform. So this is a bit of a summary view, but I want to give you a sense of what it looks like in platform and how you can move around that information. So for managers here, we can see our dashboard and our manager view for Lisa. And what it does is it gives you a real-time picture of where your team member stands, so their skills, any gaps, what their strengths are, and also a bit about sort of their learning preferences. So with our data, we can hone in and understand for particular team members, like we've got Sammy here, about particular skills for their role. We can assess where we believe they're at and assess that alongside their self-assessment. It will uncover particular upskilling opportunities and any suggested training that we can support Sammy in. We can build out a comprehensive development plan here as well. So this is very tailored and it's focused on bridging the small gaps between where she is now and where she needs to go next in terms of her role. So it's not guesswork, it's targeted, it's based on the skill assessments, the psychometric insights. But I wanted to show you something else. This is where we're headed now. And this is around the internal mobility options. So there could be a particular role. In this case, we're shifting over to the sales team, and there's a role here around e-commerce. So this is where the magic happens. Our role matching engine has highlighted that we've got some internal candidates, including Sammy, who's in the software space, who actually has a really high match for this particular role. So this is based on her current skill levels, psychometric alignment, but also her growth potential. So she may not have been working in this space, but she's got the potential to. So the platform's going to match around her natural strengths, that growth potential, as I mentioned, and we can really use that insight to start having a conversation. So whether it be her direct manager or perhaps it's from the broader HR team, and we could start to have sort of internal development or upskilling opportunities for Sammy here to start thinking about possibilities for a roadmap for growth, but for her next role if she wanted to do that. So in terms of capability, it is really the power that's within that data that we have. So for team members, there's an understanding around the clear pathways that they can for growth. So whether that's within their current role as it's evolving and they can keep upskilling their current skills, or having the confidence to think about the next step or where they could go to from here. For managers, it gives them that extra richness in the data to understand more about their team. Also, data-led conversations. I think there's a real power in that understanding or having a conversation with someone, having some data to support that. And I think it can often make conversations much deeper and easier to have in some cases. But then also for leaders, you can start to think about, so we were just looking there at Sammy and for Lisa, but if we had all of that information and looking at that organizational view, sort of what that might look like and how we can start to understand that. So I'm going to shift to the next little part where I wanted to talk about that organizational view. So when we're starting to thinking about closing the skills gap, and we can take that deeper dive, view the data from an organizational wide view. So in this lens, you can start to see the individual development or team capability, but also patterns, gaps, and opportunities at scale. So from here, we can start to explore which roles are at risk, maybe due to stagnant or declining skills. We could highlight if there's high potential talent that's being underutilized, or perhaps there's a future capability that you want to map against the strategic workforce plan, and you want to understand where that might fit in terms of the current organisation. So it really helps that proactive workforce design. So you're not really just reacting to turnover and what roles you think you need, you can sort of see it in a view. So let's take a look at that part of things. So everything that I showed you in the platform, that information is ingested by our analytics engine. And I know that these dashboards are really small. I will show you a bit of a demo in a second, but also drop a note, reach out. Cia and I are always happy to jump on a call and to have a one-on-one session to dive into this sort of insights and really explain it. But these dashboard views are great. It's getting all of that information, and you can start to see some information such as uncovering particular learning opportunities that might be within a particular team, a location, and it will really help you to understand like what the need is and what the investment might be required that you need to take. But also uncover any risk areas. So those team members who are working above level, you can start to make plans to support their growth and retain them in the business. So as promised, I'm going to go in and take a bit of a deeper look at some of that information. So we're going to jump back into the platform, and where I'm going to start is within the potential platform again. So we're back with Sammy. So obviously within here, as we said before, we can start to work with employees to map capability. We can look at targeted upskilling, but the platform delivers those powerful analytics by ingesting that data, where we can start to look at sort of there's 3 key insights that we've sort of looked at the moment that are really impactful. So if we go through here to the dashboard, we'll see that first one, which is around productivity. So time to productivity. So with this heat map, it's one of the most valuable insights. So just a quick tour. On the left is the skill levels, and across the top we've got a number of skills for this particular organisation, and we can hone in on one of those, which is the content publishing, and we can see that there's 11 roles that require that skill at level 4. But the data below shows that there's many employees that are falling short. So that's highlighted in the dark red shows to show where there's those capability gaps for priority upskilling. And the insight can be used by team leaders to identify targeted development. Workforce planners can assess any systemic gaps, and executives can model like that readiness or that time to productivity. And we can also flip on to the next heat map, which is around flight risk. So similar structure. In this case, we're starting to look at where employees are exceeding particular skill requirements. So if we look in particular at team member 62 here, they're above a benchmark for a lot of their skills. So that's a key signal that they're underutilised, and maybe there could be a risk of disengagement. So this insight allows us to identify talent ready for lateral movement, stretch projects, maybe promotions, and we can like have a chance to retain those high performers and ensure that they stay engaged. Okay, so this last view I want to show you is the L&D priority. I'm going to hone in here on stakeholder relationship management. So in this example, what we're seeing is that at a level 5, we've got 11 roles where it's required. But what's really interesting here, we can see that there's a number below benchmark, but it's the potential highlighted there. So there's actually a low potential. So what that means is these individuals would find it tricky to start to learn that particular skill. So this is something that the L&D team can take away and create sort of a capability program that's like a focused development program. So taking it away from the team managers, but providing something that can help to close that gap at scale, but also have some different options that can, once we hone in on those individuals and understand how best they learn, we can help them to upskill in that particular area. But these dashboard views are fantastic. They show you things that you may have already thought or you didn't realise yet, and it gives you sort of a really clear view of where you need to prioritise development or L&D and highlight those particular risks just to help you hone in on that. So allow you to get the data, see what you need, and then you can move on to actually taking action, as it were. That's my whistle-stop tour to show you a bit around understanding capability, what it looks like in the platform, and also some of those insights. So I'll sort of wrap up this, and I'm keen to sort of take some questions. But I guess what we really did today was understand those current skills, explored like how to uncover that hidden potential and how you can use sort of that additional personal information to really hone in on that, on the potential side of things, but also around the data and insights that you can gather once you have that skills and potential information. And interrogate that information for your whatever project that you're wanting to work on. But what's the best place to start? So definitely the most important part is around understanding skills. So building that solid framework. Don't underestimate the power of technology. So I can't tell you how many people have told me that they've been using spreadsheets for a long time to try and do that. And like, that's great. However, technology can do the heavy lifting for you. So again, if you've got the technology to do that, you can actually focus on the really important sort of change management or rollout plans that you want to, but having this data to support you and guide you as you go. So again, get in touch. Happy to have a chat and show you a bit more about this. Or even if you had a particular area, a team that you were interested in having a look at, or you've got some job descriptions and you wanted to understand what they might look like in terms of skills, again, happy to have a chat, reach out to Cia or myself. But I'll stop talking for a bit, Cia, and I'll pass back to you and see if we've got any questions.
Thank you, Laura. I always love it when you get stuck into that dashboard. So interesting to see that data at the aggregated view. So we do have a couple of minutes for questions. So if you have anything, feel free just to pop it in the chat. Just while we wait on that, we do have a few resources here that you may be interested in downloading if you are either starting your journey in the skills space, or even if you're already doing it. You can scan those QR codes. There's a great sort of ebook that just talks through SFIA, which is the framework that we primarily use. We do work with any framework. Recently, we've done in COSI, ESCO, which is a European one, but SFIA is a really great starting point for Australian organisations. It's widely used across government, so it's a good place to start if you're looking at that. It also does work across an entire organisation. It initially started very much in the digital and tech domains, but we have successfully mapped the skills of entire organisations using SFIA. And there's also another little ebook there that just sort of talks about some of the workforce insights you can gain from a potential view of your people. I will send links to this and this presentation and recording to you guys in an email after this session. And we might also get the results of that poll, just in case you're curious. We can pop that in there too. I haven't seen any questions come through, so we might wrap it up from there. But as Laura mentioned, feel free to reach out to either Laura and I. And Laura, I'm not sure if we've got our LinkedIn profiles on the last slide. We may not, but we're on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect or respond back to that email when we send it through as well. But thank you for all taking the time. We know how busy schedules are, particularly at this time of year with end of financial year bearing down on everyone. Appreciate your time, and hopefully we can stay in touch.